which you guys already know. You guys can hear me okay? Let me know first before I get started. Can you guys hear me?
Hello and welcome to a second chance. My name is Philip Jones. As always, I'm my brother, Mr. Farrell Cook. Today we have a very special show for you today, and we us. We get straight to it. So, Justine, the floor is all yours. Go ahead, and tell the people your story, and we appreciate you being on. Oh,
Hear me right? Because it
yep.
keeps saying that I was okay. So first off, I want to say that I'm very happy to do this, this interview in light of Stillbirth Awareness Month. I know like a lot of people may not know what that is, but October is Stillbirth Awareness Month where you kind of bring light to mothers who have lost children like 20 weeks into up to 20 weeks and after a pregnancy. And so me, I've had four stillbirths. I had my first child when I was 20. I'm 30 now. In 2012, I learned what a stillbirth is. So basically, when I was 20, I was about, I want to say 24, 25 weeks pregnant, and I lost my first child. And it was the hardest thing I ever had to go through. You kind of go in, and the doctors and everybody is kind of whispering around you, and you don't know what's going on around you until they tell you, we don't have a heartbeat. And those words, alone will definitely change you as a person and change, who everything that you thought you knew about yourself. So that was in 2012. And then, in 2016, I lost my second child due to a placental abruption. We can get into a little more of that later, but it's kind of something that happens during pregnancy. It can happen for a multitude of reasons. It's not always explained as to why it happened, but I lost my second child in 2017. I was full term. I was scheduled to have like a C-section like the next day, and I lost my child the night before. With that placental abruption, it was really bad. I became septic. I could have died. It was extremely scary. And then basically there's a situation where you have you have things that happen throughout that process. So you have kind of um, like a lot of mental issues that come with that. You have basically, like for me, I'll speak on myself. Like I went through a great deal of depression, which I think can be expected, and with that came a lot of um, substance abuse. There was a lot of drinking that came with that, a lot of anger that came with that. I was in a lot of pain after my last child, which I had in 2020, and so I abused prescription drugs, and then I abused alcohol. So in total, I've had four children, And with that, my situation got, worse and worse. Um, a lot of the times, like I said, people don't often know like what causes it or why it happens. And that's the worst thing, is that you have to live your life without a part of you, and sometimes you don't even know why. Sometimes you don't even know why. And for me, it was extremely hard. It was the hardest things that I've ever done. And people think, well, I have a baby now, and that I'm no longer dealing with it, but I am, and it's an everyday struggle. And so, from 2012 to 2020, I've lost four children, but I've had more miscarriages than I can even count. Um, I've I was been committed once. I've been had to be resuscitated once. A lot of people don't know these things about me. My mom's probably watching like, what? Because I don't even think she knew that. Um, I've had to be resuscitated. It's a lot, and so it takes a toll on your mental health. And hopefully, this story can let people know, like, whatever you're going through as far as your health or your struggles, like, it gets better. I don't want to say it gets easier, because I can actually say that for me, this experience has not gotten any easier, but it has its days. It does. So, I just wanted to share my story with you guys.
Well, thank you for that, Miss Cook. You have any questions?
Yeah, I'll let you start. Then I'll ask questions.
Okay. So I mean, my question always kind of starts from the beginning of a situation. So, granted, to a degree, I was there, but feeling
Yeah,
wise,
you were there.
emotionally, uh, with the first one being, at that age, exactly like where did your mindset go? Having to deal with, because, like you said, that's something hard for somebody to deal with. Especially somebody that's carrying this child, is carrying this heartbeat, this person in them for X amount of weeks, and then all of a sudden, you like you said, you're 24, and then all of a sudden it's like, so sorry to tell you, I mean, you can only get so many sorry to tell yous in your life before you just kind of lose it.
Right, right. And
So
you come
it's
unglued.
where did you go, mindset wise? Like me and Mr. Cook talked about wellness. It was that last week, and that's
Hmm.
something that's very important. It's not just something just for transplant patients, but just in general, that you keep your wellness first. So when it comes to the psychological and the mental part of it, how did you kind of, if you can, I guess you say, keep yourself together?
I didn't. I didn't. I was trying to go to college at the time. I completely dropped out of school. I completely um, got really bad with my diet. Um, Developed a bad relationship with my mom. Excuse me. Like, I didn't keep it together. Um, there, 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 there was no way to try to keep it together. Being that young and then being so uneducated about the subject. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'd be different if I had ever even heard of this. Like, I've heard of people having miscarriages. I've heard of these things. But being that young and never hearing of the subject was so scary. I didn't keep it together. And then, I had my mom and my friends. You're my best friend. I had everyone who around me who kind of, nobody knew how to deal with this or even how to help me. So all you can do really is fall apart. And I did that. I did that. And it's like, you kind of want to think that, hey, okay, well, it gets better. Things kind of get better, and it didn't. Like, 2012 was just a rough year all the way around, because it was a fog. Like, if somebody asked me, hey, what were you doing in 2012, 2013, I couldn't tell you, because it was a fog. It was reckless. It was irresponsible, to say the least. Like, life, it was bad.
Well, the one of the reasons why um, I wanted you to tell your story, outside of the fact that, like you said, it needs to be told. People need to learn from it. Is that uh, there are other people that are in other situations as well
Hmm.
that deal with that situation where they just kind of lose it, break down, don't know how to deal with it, don't know which way to turn. And I'm gonna give you an example, if I may, from Mr. Cook. 2 weeks ago, we viewed his documentary, and he was supposed to have a transplant between two other people, their donors, and that fell through. And
Hmm.
that was something that he wasn't in control of, to be able to prevent that from happening. I know he wish he was. I mean, I think anybody that would be in that type of situation wish they could prevent it from happening. But he had to take what was given to him, and you know, I'm sure at one point he was just like, kind of felt that downness a little bit in the beginning. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Tafaro. I mean, it's your story. So, um, but it got to the point where he just said, I got to get back on this horse and start riding. And so that's kind of the importance of it, is that yeah, you may not have done it at that point, but you got to the point where you're able to do it in general. Period, because you're still here. You're still
Yeah,
talking about it. So
and that's literally by the grace of God. Because, like I said, I've had what I've struggled through a lot of mental health, and I've had my share of suicide attempts. You know what I'm saying? Where it was just like I didn't want to be because I didn't see a point in it. Number one, number two, there's a certain level of pain. Like, it's like getting surgery. If you're not getting put under during surgery, like, how much pain can one tolerate?
Right.
We really there. We don't know. You don't know, but it's like when you feel like you're at your end and you can't tolerate anymore. What do you do? Even the human body, like if the body takes so much pain, you'll eventually die from pain. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's I had gotten to that point where I couldn't take anymore. So it's I want people to know, like, hey, because people always say, I get that comment all the time, well, you're still here. I'm like, I don't even know how I'm still here. I don't know, because it's not like I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fight. No, I never said that. I recently decided that. But after it happening 4 times, you kind of don't put up a fight anymore, and you just kind of exist. And that's how I had been living for a while. And I'm not ashamed to say that because it's something that I had to do to get to where I am. It's something that I have to do to grow. So, um, but that's
Can I
never.
ask you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, your story is really, really compelling for sure, man. That's major. I've seen people have won and truly devastated. So seeing what you went through is a big challenge. But let me ask you, how did you feel like, okay, you said in 2012, you lost your baby after 20 months. That's pretty severe. And because, I have two children, and I remember after 20 months, my wife, we
20
could kill
weeks.
the
20 weeks,
baby,
not 20 months.
literally. Okay, there you go. That's even, yeah. Apologize for that. But
You're fine.
they got personalities by that time. You know what I'm saying? They kicking and they doing all kinds of stuff. So you're anticipating this big, delivery, just like you said, and then it doesn't happen. So I just want to know, like, um, how did you feel like after you got pregnant in 2012, you got pregnant again? Was your thought process like, I hope this doesn't happen, or was you just like happy, like, oh, I know it's not gonna happen again? Or how'd you feel?
Yeah. So in 26, like, honestly, when it happened again, it was like, okay, this is impossible. This will never happen a second time
Right,
because it just doesn't happen a second time. Like,
right,
I had did like a lot of research on it. Like, I didn't take it lightly. When I got pregnant again, I definitely did my homework on it and researched it and read about it. And I got into a lot of stillbirth groups. Phil will tell you I'm very active, like in the stillbirth mom community. And I got into the stillbirth groups and I talked to women and they're like, yeah, I had one and then I had my rainbow baby after, or I had one and I had a miscarriage. And it's not to minimize miscarriages, but it didn't happen that far along to anyone that I had ever spoken to personally, that I
Right.
had researched. It didn't happen. And so when it happened to me again, it threw me off because, like I said, I went through that entire pregnancy like, well, no, like, no, I did. To answer your question, I never would have thought that that could happen more than one time to one person.
Were the ones you lost, were they all over 20 months? All of them?
That was, so the one in 2012 was like the youngest. Everybody else was 37, 38, 39. Yeah. So, um, yeah, everyone else, like, and it was like days before induction or days before a C-section, and something would just totally go wrong.
Mm.
Yeah. So,
Let me ask you something. You said you went through depression and everything.
mhm.
Did you have a support team around that time?
In 2012, like I said, in 2012 I kind of like ostracized everybody. I didn't talk to anybody after that one. So there was no support team. I didn't know how to deal except to push everybody away because I didn't know how to talk about it and I didn't want to talk about it, but I wasn't okay. So the best thing that I knew how to do was to push everyone away. In 2016, it was better. It was better. I had a good support system, but even for the second time, I'm not going to say that I didn't have a good support system. I'm going to say for the second time, a lot of people are still trying to figure out why this happened and how do we help her, you know? And even my mom and Phil and my best friends at the time, they were there, but it's like no one could help me. You know what I'm saying? They were there physically, but no one was there helping me. They did the best that they could, but it's just like, okay, where do we go from here?
Let me ask you a question because that's
Yeah.
that's true because that's I remember at times when people are there but nobody really quite understands. So how do you work when you work with people now? Because you do understand you understand ladies going through this now, and you are there for them. So how do they? How did How do you? How do you work with them now? Because they know you understand their challenges of what they're going through with having babies and stuff like
Well, now it's just, it's first of all, let me just say it's a feeling that you'll never forget. So when someone is coming to you for that advice, like you're always in this mindset of like, gosh, when that was me, when this was fresh to me.
that. Right.
That's the first thing, and that's how you always deal with someone. And like, remember when this pain was fresh to you, and so you remember that number one, there's nothing that you can say to fix it, nothing that you can say to fix it. But the thing that always bothered me about what I had gone through is that people wanted to avoid talking about it with me. But it's hurtful because when you have a baby, you have two children. When you had your baby, it's like everybody wanted to stop by and see the baby and talk about your kids and how was their birthing experience. When you have a stillbirth, people want to pretend like it didn't happen and not talk about it at all. So that was extremely hard. So now it's like my thing is when it comes to other people being a part of these support groups, it's like, no, talk about whatever. If you want to talk about your labor, we can talk about that. If you want to talk about your depression, we can talk about that. If you're feeling like you want to do some self harm, let's talk about that too and figure out what to do. The biggest thing for me is to just let people talk because I felt like I couldn't. I felt like I didn't have that in the beginning because people didn't know how to receive me. Not because I don't think that they cared or anything. People don't know how to receive that type of stuff. The world, it's weird because the world is not prepared for stuff like this. And it's sad because stillbirths have been happening since the beginning of time. But the
Right.
world is so unprepared for it that when I had my baby in 2020, I think I vented to Phil about this. I got 8 days off of work. 8 days.
Mm.
I just gave
That's not a
birth and I
lot.
got 8 days off of work
That's
because
not a lot.
there is no policy that protects women who have, deceased children because you don't get maternity leave still.
Right. Right.
You're
Right.
still going through, you're still lactating from your breast, you're still bleeding, you're still cramping and contracting, your body is still going through the process. But you don't there you have to go back to work and keep going. You still have to deal with all of the questions and how's the day, you have to deal with all the things that there's no policy that protects, women who go through that. And that is something that I have to change and leave my footprint on this earth. I have to change that because it's just not something that, as strong and resilient as we are, nobody can go back to work and and just deal with that. And I can say
Like brush
that
that off, and that never
no,
happened, and just go back. Yeah, that's crazy. That
no,
let me ask you this though. Going forward, how would you have, like, if somebody else went through this in their support system? Would you recommend their support system to talk to them, even though they? I mean, I can only imagine how uncomfortable that is, even somebody trying to say something to that person who lost that baby. But would you recommend somebody talking to them anyway if they was going through that? I mean, what would you recommend?
yes, because I would recommend you talk to them because, like I said, you don't want to ignore it like it didn't happen. But there's
Okay.
triggers in the group, within the community. There's triggers that you don't say. Like, you don't say things like, "You can always have another one." You
Right.
don't say
Right.
things like that, or "He's in a better place," or "God needed him more." It's just, don't do that. You kind of talk to them about, the good times. Well, tell me about the time that you enjoyed while you were pregnant. My mom, my mom started to get me to do that after a while. Because I would talk to her a lot, and I would be like, Mom, I miss him or I miss her, and
Hmm.
she'd be like, remember that time, she kicked you really hard and you peed yourself, and then it would make me laugh. You
Right.
just have to find a way. You have to really dig when it comes to people like that, and recognize them. Like, still, like I said, October is Stillbirth Awareness Month, and on the 15th, we do the wave of light where everyone lights a candle. When my friends and family do it, near or far, even my friends in different states, it means a lot to me because it means you're in support of me and what I believe in my movement. And, you know, Phil lights up his whole house. And I'm like, God, I didn't even do that. He puts candles everywhere. It means a
Got
lot,
candles in right now in my house in the hallway.
so
Smell like a bakery in here.
when you do it, that's how you support. You can support someone going through that in many different ways. In many different
Let
ways.
me let me ask you this though. You said you went through depression, and then you self medicated and stuff. Would you recommend like therapy, somebody them to go talk to, or did you go talk to somebody? Or
I did. We were when I had my last baby. We were in the pandemic.
okay.
So I started doing therapy via Zoom, and I'm thinking about becoming a therapist myself. And the
Mm.
reason being is because I had been talking to this woman, and in a way, she seemed like she couldn't understand me. And so I asked her. I said, "Do you
Mm.
have kids?" She said, "No." I said, "Well, have you ever been pregnant?" And she said, "No." And I'm like, how can you help me? Like, you can't help me. You can listen, and it's always nice to have an ear, but you really can't help me.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I think that's where we come in. Like Phil and I, when we talk about. I'm sorry to cut you off.
no, you're
Go
fine.
ahead. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, I definitely agree with you. I'm not saying that a woman has to go through everything you went through, but if a woman had kids or been pregnant before, they can definitely relate. I've never been pregnant, but me and my wife and I have been pregnant before, but I definitely can relate coming from a man's standpoint. I mean, I'm keeping it 100. Watching my wife, go through all that and everything, and then, then we had kids, but I could, I have empathy for you right now going through that, and I can only imagine, you having to talk to somebody who's had some experience in that. And that's where, with Phil and I, about transplants and stuff, we talk to a lot of people because we've been through those situations before, dialysis and all those things. But so I get where you're going. It's hard to talk to somebody who's never even experienced any little bit of tidbit of what you've went through. I get you. I
Mhm.
feel you on that.
It almost seems redundant. It almost seems redundant to sit up and talk to someone who has no nothing to say about anything that you've ever been through because you feel like you're just talking to someone who's basically telling you things that you want to hear from like a book, you know. And no, like you like what you're saying with you and your wife, you're talking from a parent's perspective. You're talking from a perspective of how would you feel if you lost one of your children.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So you know exactly what it means. Phil is coming from a perspective of these are his godchildren that we're speaking of. So
Right.
it's like you know how it feels. I'm like, do you have family? Do you have godchildren? She's like, no. I'm like, damn, like
Mm.
so you can't even begin to relate to me in any way. You know, like you don't have nieces or nephews or someone, a child that you hold near and dear to your heart that you could never imagine life without. I'm only 30 and I have to live the rest of my life without four people that I never thought that I would have to live life without. You have people who kind of, well, you have a baby now. Ocean is not my replacement. He's not a replacement. He's just here.
Right.
He's here, you know, but he's not my replacement. And that's a common misconception that I get all the time. But
Yeah, I can only imagine people thinking, since you do have a beautiful new baby now, that it replaces those. No, because every pregnancy, every person is a different person. So,
Right.
and then even you going through what you went through, that's post traumatic on every situation. Every situation you went through is a different one. So that does not replace what happened.
right,
And I know you're real fortunate to have the baby right now, and that's a blessing. But I can't even think about saying, "Oh, that replaces them." No, nowhere near. And I agree with you on that.
right. It doesn't change anything. You know what I'm saying? My baby, he's my whole entire world, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't make it any better or any easier. And what we're learning about right now is that you deal with kind of like survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt.
Right,
I feel bad because I love Ocean so much. What do my other kids feel? And I even that's like the most emotional part about this whole thing is that I tell my mom all the time because I told her, you know, that I get sad. And the part that I get sad about is, God, I love him so much, but what are those other kids feeling? Because I believe that they exist, and even if no one does, they exist in my heart. So I feel like don't like I want to express to them like don't ever feel forgotten. So it is like a sense of survivor's guilt. So if you think the journey gets easier because you have a child, it does and it doesn't. You know, because I pour all this love into this little person, and I have four other little people that I wanted to share that love with too. You know, and that's hard. That's hard every day.
go ahead, Phil.
Well, we had about 30 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and let us get ourselves together, and we'll go to a commercial. Welcome back to a second chance. My name is Philip Jones. I guess Justine lost her signal for a minute, so she'll be back on shortly. So, um, just to kind of touch on some Mr. Cook, man. What's on your mind? What you thinking about?
I'm really blown away by her story, and then what's compelling more than anything is she wants to jump back in that space and help others. Going through what she went through and then help others. I think what I see is somebody kind of like what we do. Want to jump back into that space and help people that been through what she's been through, and that's some strength right there. And I think it's definitely a need. It's definitely a need. This is something that I never really thought about, touched on. I have empathy just hearing what she went through, coming from a dad standpoint. So I can only imagine a woman going through that as far as losing a kid, losing a baby. So it's definitely needed. I'm just gonna say, well, her jumping into that space with being a therapist and helping people in that, helping ladies in that space, it's definitely a need. That's all I'm gonna say. And then sometimes these things can be your calling. You never know. You wonder why you're going through it, and then it's always a rainbow at the end of the tunnel. The end of the tunnel, be something like this. Hey, okay. I'm gonna give back. I found my calling. I literally found my calling going through what I went through, and I could say pretty much, you too, and not just our calling, but one of our callings. Let's say that.
Right.
Because there's still several others, callings that we have also that we will definitely tap into in this lifetime. But that's definitely one. Her going through, that many. If a person went through one or heard her story, they would definitely listen to her and definitely feel her compassion that she can bring to people. So I admire Justine for sure.
Yeah, it's. I agree 100% that it is a need because like I said, I was there, pretty much for all of them. Of course, I was always going through something, in a hospital for something, and couldn't always be physically, there. But I tried, my best, at least verbally, to be able to, keep on a right track mentally and stuff like that. But like you said, it's hard when it's not coming from somebody that's dealt with that or going through that those circumstances that she had to go through, even just once.
Right.
It only takes once, for them to understand, how that feels. And so, me, I came from a point of not just being a best friend. I need to be there, but just for the fact that like yourself, we both been through things. We've had to fight for our life, and doing a number of things health wise to be able to stay alive and be here on this earth and do what we do. And so I try to more or less do that from that standpoint, to just kind of give that advice and those words of encouragement to get her to keep going. And like I said, it's difficult to take that in, um, when it's not coming from somebody that have gone through what you've gone through. That's like us talking to somebody and they're like, yeah, well, you got to do this, you got to do that, and you like, have you even had a scalpel touch your body before? Like, you know,
Right.
you like,
Yeah.
no, nah, man. I've
Right.
never been, cut nothing to, you like, well, how you gonna tell me what I need to do, what I should not be doing, and
Right.
you have never endured what I have to go through on a daily basis? Like, have you dealt with gout before? Have you dealt with high
Right.
blood pressure before? Have you dealt with diabetes before? And those things are important to ask because, and this is not all of them. It's probably not even 100%, 2% of them, but some people do it because they love to be a therapist and help people, but then sometimes it just happens because it's like, ooh, it's a check. When it comes to talking to somebody, oh, I can get paid with it, but they don't understand that you wasting that person's time can cause a problem because
Well,
they,
I think her therapist, whoever her therapist was, I believe they had the best intentions, but
oh, no,
sometimes,
definitely.
yeah, but sometimes, I mean, I keep it real. If it was something, I couldn't talk to somebody that's out of my. It's something I never went through. I can't say now. I could be there for them and support and things like that, but I
Right.
can't. I can have empathy for what they're going through and compassion and stuff like that. But I can't act like yeah. I understand what you're going through. I can't say anything like that if I never been through what that person's been through. That's where I'm going with that. But hey, Justine is a straight hero, man. And then it's pretty amazing to go through that, and then then have a baby, and it's a successful one, and for people not to think that she's not gonna ever think about those other ones that that she lost, and you can't help but think about them. I mean, I'm coming from a
Right.
man's standpoint, and if my wife and I would have lost a kid like that, I couldn't help but be thinking, I'd be like, dang, so and so would be this age right now. They'd be in kindergarten. You'll be going through these, yeah, they'd be in fourth grade, third grade, all of these things right now, so
Right.
you couldn't help but wonder. And the wondering is, that could lead to depression because that person's not here. All these things could lead to depression. I mean, man, we see it in transplant recipients and everything, but to lose a for a mother to lose her child in a situation like that where it's feeling like a happy situation, like, oh, I'm about to deliver this, and bam, you get that. Just like you said with me, when I lost my, I mean, not lose, but didn't receive my transplant. Well,
Right.
not receiving my transplant is nowhere near as hard as this one, because I always felt like no matter what, I'm still gonna be okay. I'm gonna get me a transplant one day, But this is a final thing. This is nowhere near what she lost. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because she's about to deliver. She's about to have this bundle of joy, and then everything gone. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's fortunate. They found me another kidney, months later and stuff like that. But you can't just all of a sudden replace a baby like that. That doesn't work
Right.
like that. So that's why to me is way more devastating situation. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I honestly, every Christmas, Easter, any of those holidays, I'm always thinking like, what would I have gotten, for Christmas or whatever, because those are my
Right.
godchildren.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
I mean, it's
That's
for
what.
me.
Let me ask you that. Let me ask you that because you're real close to her. Y'all real cool. Y'all home. This is your home girl and stuff like that. You know, Seeing a friend go through that, and I know you was there to support, but coming from a man standpoint, you don't carry kids and stuff like that. But how was you feeling about that, man? I mean, to see your friend go through so much like that.
Well, for me, I felt it because I've gone through it. Well, not the first time. The first couple times I did I did lose a cousin at 4 months later on, kind of like in between the four. Um, I've lost more than just my godchildren. I've lost a cousin as well that we had to bury. So the feeling alone in general when it's somebody that you're connected to, removing the titles part to it. So when you're that close to the person that is having a child or had the child and then they're gone, it does something to your heart, especially when you're close to that child in general. I mean, because you could be close to the parent and really kind of like and just talk to them all the time on the phone or a video chat or whatever, and never talk to the kid.
Right.
So you really not gonna have no feelings, because you had no interaction with that kid. But
Right.
when you have that interaction with that kid, you've seen him a lot. You talked to him. I was video chatting or whatever. That takes a lot out of you to get a call like that. I'm gonna give you an example, and because people think that some people they don't think the whole thing through, and the first thing they say is, oh, the baby wasn't even here long enough for you to grow feelings. That's a lie. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
time means nothing, when it comes to being attached to somebody.
Right.
um a friend of mine, I've told you this story before. she lost her cousin. Her cousin had just turned 4 years old, I believe. I've only known this kid for about maybe 8 months,
Mhm.
but I've only physically in front of me seen him for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. But it hurt me so much when she called me and told me that because of the relationship not only that I had with her, but with her cousin, her little cousin as well. So people need to understand that it has absolutely nothing to do with the timing of it. They a lot of people, like I said, they automatically think that, oh, because it's 20 weeks or 22 weeks or whatever, that there's no feelings involved. There's a lot of, especially coming from a parent's point of view. I mean, like you said, you're a father. If you have to go through that, I'm sure that would have definitely hurt you. Of course, it would have probably been a different avenue and road for your wife being the person who had to carry the child, but that's still your child at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if how long it was, if you just found out she's pregnant or whatever the case may be, and it's like, oh, well, that should hurt because in your mind you automatically think, oh, I'm about to have a kid. You know, Especially when you're that type. Because I know guys who's just like, man, I can't wait to have a family. I can't, and then all of a sudden it's like, ain't having no family. You
Right.
know, it hurts. It definitely hurts.
Right. Okay, Justine's back.
Sorry, my baby was being a baby.
That's all right.
Hey, enjoy these moments, okay? Because mine are older now. They be trying to tell me what to do. Enjoy these moments for real.
So, Mr. Cook, you got any questions?
I don't have any more questions. I just, this is something new to me. I just want, listen. Like I said, I think Justine, what you're doing is really wonderful to jump back into that space and want to help others, in that same area what you was doing, what happened to you, helping them. Like I told Phil before, when you weren't on, I said I think it's one of your callings. This might not be all your callings, but this is definitely one of your callings, and I could definitely see you being a therapist because I could feel the compassion you have for this situation and stuff,
Right.
and I think you would bring a lot to girls, ladies, I should say, who have experienced these things. So I think you're headed in the right direction on helping others for sure.
And men too. They get overlooked a lot. They get overlooked a lot when it
Okay.
comes to the subject.
Yes.
And people don't understand that, when you there's there's good men out there. I overheard you just saying that men are out here and they're stoked to have a family. And they come in with the intentions of, oh, I'm about to have a baby and I'm about to be a dad and I'm about to do all these things. And when it doesn't happen, they need equal the support too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to really, like I said, help everyone involved. But as I touched
Right.
on earlier, um,
And
my
we always
biggest
have to be that tough one. That oh, I'm okay. But I'm telling you right now, man. Believe me, we do break down. We might hold it. We might stay strong, but we might not have a shoulder to cry on all the time. But we do. We men have feelings also. And I, I'm not like trying to act like I'm tough and nothing like that. But I'm just keeping it real. We do have feelings also. So, and we put up these hard fronts, but believe me, man, I could even if any man that went through something like this, I know I'd be tore down. I don't care.
that
You
just
can say
makes
what you want.
us human.
That's
It just
true.
makes us human. And
Yeah,
like
I think. Oh, go ahead.
like I told you guys before, my biggest mission on this was, like I said, my biggest struggle was after having my last child in 2020. Well, not Ocean, before Ocean, Disney. When I had her, like I said, having to go back to work in 8 days was the
Yeah,
hardest
that's
thing ever.
huge. That's crazy.
So
It's crazy.
the being a law major, I'm right now majoring in law. One of the biggest things right now is to get Congress to listen to, to try to create a bill that also protects women who are also, who are also stillbirth mothers and stillbirth fathers. Because, like I said, and I want to reiterate on it because it's something that's super important to me. There is no law that protects women and men who have lost children. You don't get bereavement because technically they don't consider it, classify it as a death, even though it's not. So it's like if you don't get bereavement or maternity leave, then how do you deal? Like, so I think that, we're gonna push it. Me and there's a classmate. We're gonna push this all the way to Congress so we can get them to make it to where you get enough time off to grieve. Call it bereavement, call it maternity leave, even though me personally, I didn't want it to be called maternity leave, but you do need time to heal. So right now I'm on a mission, and that's my biggest mission. And also, like I said, to help other women, because it's super important. And I wouldn't have gone through all the things that I went through if I had someone who was more educated in it. And like I was telling you guys earlier, I'm not even supposed to be here. So, you know, yeah.
So I'm gonna ask this because we can, I want to keep it short but impactful all at the same time. Um, it's a two-part question, so it'll probably give some time to it. But um, how would you tell somebody how to deal with that urge of having to deal of wanting to, I guess you could say, the substance abuse and alcoholism and things of that nature that can come into effect because that's a big attachment to depression. A lot of people they get in that state of depression and they want to drink their problems away or they want to do drugs or they want to go to the doctor and say give me these or whatever the case may be. Everybody does it differently. However they feel they want to do it, but for somebody to for a woman, uh, or man, whichever side you want to touch on, to get through a situation like this, exactly what avenue would you direct them to go through so they don't run into those walls? Because once, I mean, we've heard people, before, whether it's the news or Facebook or whatever, where they run smack dab into an abuse wall and they can't get around it. They just stuck. They can't drop it. They don't know how. They don't know how to get the help they need to get out of it. Because they don't know which way is which to even get to where they need to get to get these directions. So, if you're just kind of just speaking, you don't have to say like you're speaking, but just speaking exactly like what would you tell somebody in that situation that's thinking of going down those avenues of abuse?
Don't Number one, don't cling to anything that is not known to help you grow. If when we nourish our bodies, we drink water. We drink alcohol, yeah, but we drink water because water helps the body. At that time, you don't drink alcohol because you know it's not going to do anything for you. It's going to numb you for a second. My mom had this friend that told her, "Don't drink when you're angry." I think she'll probably correct me later, but don't drink in general when you're going through something like that because it's hard to come back from. Like I was explaining earlier, I did the substance abuse. I got into abusive relationships. I did all of that to try to heal myself from something that I couldn't heal from an environment. Like you can't heal around things and around people that are meant to break you. You know what I'm saying? So it's get around things that are meant to heal you. Plants and the outdoors and people that have healing spirits and have healing chakras. And I think we're all in a time where we get around people and we know what people are not good for us. Because you're able to walk into a room and decipher like, hey, this person's not a good person, or this energy is not a good energy. Like learning that you have to decipher what's good, what's bad, what's not. Feel personally, I've done the drugs and the drinking. I went that route, but present day, the route to go is get around things that heal you. Get around things that heal you, like whatever it is, whether it's writing, whether it is running, walking, exercise, whether it's doing a platform, being a part of a community. Like I said, I got became a part of the Angel Moms community. It's helped me out a great deal.
What did I
Um,
didn't hear you? Can you say it again? I didn't hear you.
what happened?
I didn't hear you. You said how'd you overcome this? You said I was listening to you. You said you overcame it. How?
Just becoming part of the Angel Mom community. That
Okay.
helped me a great deal. Being able to talk to people who are like me, being able to feel that I wasn't alone, being able to help other people. Because in that community, you have people who come in who are new and who feel like they're at their low. You were able to pull them out and let them know that they're not. And then they come in and they're all drunk and they're all on drugs and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, well, I feel bad because I'm drinking myself to death and I'm on drugs. And you tell them, and I've told people, and 2020 was a bad year for me. If it was alcohol, I was gonna drink it, and if it was a drug, you know, within reason, if it was a pill, if it was weed, I was gonna try it. And I don't even smoke weed, and I don't even pop pills, but I did last year because why not? But it's not the way to go. You have to get around things with people that heal you, cling to the things that mean the most to you, and those things will in turn teach you how to heal. You know, you have to find things that have a lot of healing properties, writing and journaling and helping and all those things like that. Those things have helped heal me, and so that's what I cling to. You know, even when it comes to my son, he makes me happy. And I often look, to him for strength. But as far as healing, sometimes I, give my son to my mom and I take time to heal myself in other ways because I don't look to him to heal me. I have to find other things. And I have, and it's worked out a lot, and even now, like, I don't drink much. I barely take a Tylenol because of what I went through. Once you abuse something, it's hard to kind of even think about going back to it. You just have to find things that heal you. Lean on your friends, the ones who are dedicated to trying to understand what you go through. Some people will listen to you, but aren't dedicated to understanding your struggle. I'm lucky right now to have my mom, my dad, a circle of friends who are dedicated to trying to understand the struggle of this. You know, like I said, my mom and Phil and my best friend, they kind of do October with me and we do the wave of light together because it's something that means a lot to all of us. And it's a part of my healing process. It really helps me to heal. That October is a month for me of healing altogether.
Uh, I, I couldn't do nothing but laugh a few minutes ago because you said something. You said, "Why not?" And all I could think of was Edward popping up out of nowhere because all he did is put "Why not" in front of stuff. I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get a phone call tonight." Watch, but you know what? I appreciate you coming on. And it's I guess you could say for me a sense of relief because um, I know for some people it takes a lot to get through to get to this point. Especially when gone through as much as as what you've gone through, or anybody when it's a pile of things that you have to get through. I mean, it Cook's a little bit more better at this than I am when it comes to speaking, but it took me a while myself to really talk about it. We've had this conversation before, and I didn't really tell anybody about my situation until maybe about like really like 2016 was when I really started, kind of talking about it. Um, Before then, I only really did it like twice, and that was the transplant games in 2008 and um, the interview I did for One Legacy, which is a donate life part of donate life and stuff. So it took me a long time uh, to put all that, not necessarily put it behind me, but just kind of come to terms with everything because, I think at one point, anybody that's ever gone through something as serious as, the three of us have, at one point in the very beginning, we always ask ourselves, why me? Why am I going through this? Or, what reason is there for me to have to go through this? No matter what the age is, I mean, me and Cook was, age wise, about 16 years apart from when it happened, or a little bit more, and it still gets asked, because you don't understand it when it happens. You see other people dealing with these things, and you going about your life doing your thing, and then all of a sudden you look up and you in that same position. And it's not the easiest to go through. So for me, before I ask you this one last question, um, keep doing what you're doing and what you want to do, where you have your mindset uh, to go from here on out. If the therapy thing is what you want to do it. If the law thing is what you want to do it. I've learned by doing this show, working with the Why Not Foundation and working with other advocates, is that this space is what keeps my head level. It keeps me above water because uh, when I'm not doing this, I drown. You have to find something that's going to keep you um, in a position to where you feel comfortable living and going and take your steps every day. My whole thing is one day at a time. You
That's
can't do anything necessarily about your past, and you can't do anything about the future. The only thing that you can control is what's in front of you right now.
true.
So, do your school thing and do it the best of your abilities that you can do. Like I said, if you come to a conclusion later on where you like, you know what, yeah, I don't want to do this law thing, and we'll go ahead and do this therapy thing, or vice versa. At the end of the day, it's about putting 100% in it because, like you guys mentioned earlier, it's not many people doing this out there, and it's something that Mr. Cook has told me of some conversations that we had over the past few weeks. It's a need. It's something that's needed in the world, and it's something that um, us in general. I'm not even gonna put any color, but just period need to act on and make it something that is there and accessible to people to get this information because it's not like they can just turn around and bump into it. You
Right.
got
Right.
you got to deep sea dive in Google to try to get in touch with somebody later on. So, my last question for you is, what would you want the people that are watching now and in the future to take from this interview today, from your story? What would you want the men and women, kids, if they watching later on, they want to decide they want to be a therapist, or they want to do law, whatever the case may be, and they're watching your story, how you fought to get to where you are now? What would you want them to take from this?
Basically, what I would want anyone to take from this is make your pain have purpose. Make your pain have purpose. Whatever it is, make it have purpose. Um, that's it. It's really blunt to the point. Make your pain have purpose. We all go through things that we at the time feel like are very unfair in life and that just don't make sense. But there's someone in the stillbirth group who suffers from infertility and she can't have kids at all. But she's adopted these amazing children, and one of them is going on to be a doctor. And so her pain, she took her pain and she adopted these children and she molded them, and they're going to be the great minds of the world. you know Make your pain have purpose. And I know while you're kind of in the mud you don't see it at that moment, but when you kind of get your head out, turn that pain into purpose. That's my advice, and that's what I'm working on, and that's what I think that people should do. And it really will make you, it'll make the world a better place and you a better person for it.
Let me say something to you. I keep this little book of quotes, and wherever I hear the quote from, I write it down and I write their person's name down. So I just wrote that down. Make your pain have purpose, and then I put your name on it, and that's gonna be in my quote book because anything that affects me, if somebody says something that affects me in that way, I write it down and I put it in my quote book. So that's definitely going with your name on there. Make your pain have purpose.
Make
I
your
love
pain have
that. Thank you
purpose.
so much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. Your
Well,
name will
that
be right there
brings
on that.
What do you say, Mr. Cook?
I just said her name would be right there. That's where I heard it from. I put the date, time, what I was doing, and everything when I heard that, because I always want to capture these moments in my life when because people just don't say it just to say it. There's a reason why people are saying things and why I feel I need to hear them at certain times. And when I feel like when somebody says something that touches me in my heart, I always capture that moment. That's just me. That's what I do. So I ain't telling nobody else to do it, but that's what I do. And I capture the person who said it. Go ahead, I'm done.
I let you go ahead and talk, Mr. Cook. I never have any objections to when you speak because nothing dumb comes out your mouth, so I don't have to worry about
Thank
that.
you, I appreciate it. But that's prolific what she just said.
So that brings us to the end of our show today. Again, Justine, I appreciate you, love
No
you, and I
problem.
thank you for coming on to tell this story. It's definitely going to do what a second chance is meant to do, which is um, be effective. Not just now, but in the future as well. To be able to change somebody's life somewhere in time, and this is as long as I got a hold of it, it's not going nowhere. So, we're definitely gonna try to get it, to as many different people as possible. That's our thing, is about changing lives, changing and saving lives. So, um, next week we have Alexandra Harrison Flaxman on Care DX coming on our show next Sunday, same time, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And it's going to be another outstanding interview. Alexandra has been dealing with end-stage renal disease since birth. She went on dialysis at the age of 8. She is a transplant recipient, as well as a legislative advocate for the kidney community. Also, so look very excited and looking forward to this interview next Sunday. And we will see you all here next Sunday. Mr. Cook, appreciate you. And you guys have a great night.